Hi.
Alright, so here goes. I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here I am. My name's Ron, 45, and I thought I had a pretty good life. Married to Bonnie for 20 years, we have a beautiful daughter, Emily, who just turned 18. I had a stable job, a nice home, and a wife I thought loved me as much as I loved her. Turns out I was dead wrong. Bonnie is one of those women who always needs excitement. She's successful, smart, and always the center of attention. I thought we were a team. I worked my butt off to provide for our family while she climbed the corporate ladder. We weren't perfect, but I believed we were solid. Now, I'm not stupid. I knew Bonnie had been acting strange. Late nights at work, sudden new outfits, and always keeping her phone close. She was extra nice to me too, like guilt-ridden nice. But I kept telling myself, nah, she wouldn't do that. We've been through too much together. But life has a way of slapping you in the face when you least expect it. For our 20th anniversary, I wanted to do something special. Bonnie had a work trip to Atlanta, so I thought I'd surprise her. I set up a fancy pearl necklace delivery at her hotel and arranged a live stream so our family could see her reaction. Yeah, I know, kinda corny, but I wanted Emily and Bonnie's parents to see how much she still meant to me. The plan was simple. Her colleague would hand her the gift during their team dinner, and we'd all watch her reaction. I wanted Emily to see that love and loyalty still meant something. But when the camera feed popped up on our TV at home, we didn't see Bonnie with her colleagues. We saw her with him. Some young, good-looking guy, probably in his late 20s. They were holding hands, laughing, leaning way too close. And then, right there in front of her colleagues, he tucked her hair behind her ear and kissed her. My heart stopped. Bonnie, my wife, the woman I gave 2 decades of my life to, was sitting in a fancy restaurant with her lover while our daughter and her parents watched in horror. Emily was the first to react. She gasped and covered her mouth, looking at me like she was afraid I'd explode. Bonnie's parents were dead silent, but I could see the shame on their faces. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the screen like an idiot. The worst part? Bonnie had no idea we were watching. That was the moment everything changed. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The room was dead silent except for the sound of silverware clinking on the live feed. Bonnie was still laughing, still leaning into him, while our daughter sat beside me, looking like she was about to throw up. Then Emily snapped. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Mom is cheating." Bonnie's dad looked away, rubbing his temples like he was trying to make sense of what he just saw. Her mom just kept staring at the screen, like if she watched long enough the truth would change. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't even blink. It felt like my whole body had shut down. And then Bonnie kissed him back. That was it. I grabbed the remote and shut off the TV. I couldn't watch anymore. Emily turned to me, her face red and her eyes filled with tears. "Dad, what do we do?" I didn't have an answer. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to say. My wife, my Bonnie, was cheating on me, and the whole damn family had just watched it unfold like a bad reality show. Bonnie's mother finally spoke, her voice weak. Maybe it's a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Emily spat. "Grandma, she's kissing some guy who's not Dad." Bonnie's dad sighed and looked at me. "Ron, you need to call her. Right now." "Call her? And say what?" "Hey honey, just caught you making out with your boy toy. How's your steak?" No. I wasn't calling her. Instead, I did something worse. I pulled out my phone, took a deep breath, and sent her a text. Me, "Hey, hope you're having a good night. Just wanted to tell you I love you." I hit send and watched her phone light up on the screen. I wanted to see how she'd react. If she'd flinch, look guilty, anything. But no. Bonnie didn't even hesitate. She glanced at her phone, smiled, and slid it back into her purse without responding. I felt sick. She had no idea that her husband, daughter, and parents had just watched her betray us all. Emily wiped her eyes and stood up. "I can't, Dad, I can't be here right now." She stormed upstairs and slammed her door shut. Bonnie's dad sighed again. "I don't even know what to say, son." I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to stand. "You don't have to say anything. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Bonnie smiling at her phone, completely oblivious to the fact that her whole damn family had just watched her betray us. Emily didn't come out of her room. Bonnie's parents left quietly, looking too ashamed to say much. I just sat in the living room, staring at the dark TV screen, replaying everything in my head. I wasn't just angry. I was done. But I wasn't going to confront her over the phone. No, that was too easy. She was going to come home to a husband who knew everything. And she was going to have to face what she did. So I planned. Bonnie's flight was set to land the next evening. She had no idea I had seen anything. As far as she was concerned, she was coming home to the same clueless husband she had been fooling for God knows how long. I decided to play along. The next morning, I texted her like everything was normal. Me, morning, beautiful. How was your dinner last night? It took her about an hour to respond. Bonnie, morning, babe. It was great. Just a boring work dinner, you know how it is. Boring? Yeah, right. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt, but I forced myself to type back. Me, glad to hear. Can't wait to see you tonight. Bonnie, me too. I missed you so much. I almost threw my phone across the room. Missed me? Was she serious? I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm. I needed to be smart about this. I wasn't just gonna confront her, I was gonna expose her. Bonnie had no problem lying straight to my face. So I was gonna let her lie one more time. And then I was gonna destroy her with the truth. Bonnie's flight landed at 6:45 p.m. By 7:30, she was walking through our front door, suitcase in hand, smiling like nothing had happened. Hey baby, she said, dropping her bags and wrapping her arms around me. I didn't hug her back. I couldn't. Not after what I saw. But I had to act normal. At least for a little longer. So I forced myself to put my hands on her back and pat it like she was some coworker I barely knew. Hey, I said, keeping my voice steady. She pulled back and frowned. What's wrong? Oh, don't act concerned now. Just tired, I muttered. Long day. She smiled and kissed my cheek, her usual routine. I know the feeling. I watched as she walked through the house, acting like nothing was wrong. She called out for Emily, but our daughter didn't answer. She was still locked in her room, refusing to see her mother. Bonnie sighed. Ugh, she's been so moody lately. You think she'll come out if I bribe her with pizza? My stomach twisted in disgust. She had no idea. She thought she was still in control. And I was about to rip that illusion apart. The first lie. Bonnie flopped onto the couch, kicking off her heels. So, she said, stretching. What did you do while I was gone? Oh, you know, I said casually, taking a seat across from her. Hung out with Emily. Talked to your parents. I let that last part hang in the air, watching for a reaction. Nothing. She just nodded. That's nice. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. What about you? How was the trip? She rolled her eyes. So boring. Just work, work, work. I nodded slowly. And dinner? She waved a hand. Ugh, the usual. Just me and the team going over reports. You would have hated it. I stared at her, my blood boiling. She really just said that. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone and clicked a video. Then I turned the screen toward her. Bonnie's face went pale. Because right there on my phone was her. Sitting in that restaurant. Holding hands with him. The color drained from her cheeks so fast I thought she might pass out. Her mouth opened but no words came out. I let the silence stretch. I wanted to watch her squirm. Then, finally I said, You sure it was just work? Bonnie blinked. Once. Twice. Then she let out a nervous little laugh, like I had just played some kind of prank on her. Where did you get that? She stammered, shifting on the couch like she suddenly couldn't sit still. I didn't answer. I just kept my eyes on her, waiting. She swallowed, forcing a smile. Ron, it's not what it looks like. Oh, here we go. I tilted my head. Really? Because it looks like my wife, who was supposed to be at a work dinner, was out holding hands with some guy and kissing him. I turned the phone in my hand like I was studying the video for the first time. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just imagined that part. Bonnie sat up straight, her whole body stiff. Okay, just let me explain. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. The first excuse. She let out a shaky breath. Ron, that guy is just a friend. I promise. I nodded slowly, pretending to consider it. Huh. So, do you hold hands with all your friends like that? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her mind was racing. I could see it. So I gave her another push. What about the kiss? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Was that just a friend thing too? Her face turned red. She was trapped and she knew it. Then came the next lie. That was a mistake, she blurted out. He kissed me. I pulled away right after, I swear. Oh, this was pathetic. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to another part of the video, the part where she leaned in first. I hit play. Bonnie's face crumbled. She knew she was caught. The breakdown begins. Tears welled up in her eyes. Ron, I love you. I love our family. This wasn't supposed to mean anything. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, so that makes it better. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Baby, please, she begged. It was just a stupid thing. It didn't mean anything. I didn't plan for this to happen. Didn't plan for it? I repeated, shaking my head. So what, you just tripped and fell into an affair? She wiped her eyes, sniffling. It wasn't an affair, Ron. It was a mistake. I sat back, folding my arms. Really? How long has this mistake been going on? Silence. Because that's the thing with liars. When you ask them for details, they freeze. I let that silence sit between us for a moment. Let her feel it. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I asked, "What's his name?" She blinked rapidly. I could see her brain scrambling for an answer. She had no idea that I already knew. Bonnie's lips parted, but no words came out. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, my voice eerily calm. What's his name? She swallowed hard, her hands twisting in her lap. Ron, please, I didn't let her finish. His name is Nick, I said, watching her flinch like I just slapped her. He's younger than you. Works out a lot. Likes to take you to fancy restaurants when you're supposed to be on work trips. Bonnie's face went completely blank. She knew. She knew she couldn't talk her way out of this anymore. How did you? I smirked. How did I find out? Oh, you mean how did I figure out that my wife was sneaking around with some kid while I was at home raising our daughter? I let that sink in before dropping the hammer. We all saw Bonnie. Her brow furrowed. What? I took my phone and held it up again. Remember this little video? I wiggled it in the air. Well, guess who was watching when it played live? She blinked. Our daughter. I let that hit her. Your parents. Another pause. Me. Her mouth fell open. No, she whispered. Oh yes. I chuckled bitterly. We were all sitting right here watching you betray us in real time. Bonnie slapped a hand over her mouth like she was going to be sick. Oh my God. Yeah, I said. Oh. My. God. The panic button. She suddenly jumped up, pacing the room, running her hands through her hair. Oh my God, no. Emily saw? My parents saw? Yep, I said, popping the pea just to twist the knife. She turned to me, her face wet with tears. Ron, how could you do that? I actually laughed. A full, bitter laugh. How could I do that? I repeated. Are you out of your mind? She took a step toward me. Ron, I put up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. Don't. Just don't. Bonnie crumbled, her knees buckling as she fell onto the couch, sobbing. "I messed up," she choked out. "I didn't mean to, I never wanted to hurt you, I swear." I stood up, looking down at the broken woman in front of me. "You did hurt me," I said, my voice like ice. "You hurt me, you hurt Emily, you humiliated your parents. And for what? Some fling with some guy who doesn't give a damn about you." She sobbed harder, burying her face in her hands. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. Because the storm had just begun. Bonnie sat there, sobbing into her hands like she was the victim. Like she was the one who got betrayed. I didn't feel bad for her. Not even a little. I let her cry for a minute. Let her sit in it. Then, when I got tired of her pity party, I spoke. "Start talking." She peeked up at me, her face streaked with mascara. What? I crossed my arms. No more lies. No more "it was a mistake." I want the truth. All of it. Bonnie wiped her face, her chest rising and falling as she tried to catch her breath. "Ron, I cut her off." "How long?" She blinked. I clenched my jaw. "How long have you been seeing him?" Her hands started shaking. "Ron, please." I stepped closer. "How long?" She jumped, sucking in a breath. 6 months. I closed my eyes. Let that number settle in my chest like a knife. 6 months. Half a year of my wife sneaking around. Lying to my face. Kissing him while telling me she loved me. I took a slow breath. "And you were ever planning to tell me?" She shook her head quickly. No, Ron, she swallowed. I was going to end it. I swear. I got caught up in it and I held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop." She clamped her mouth shut. I looked at her, really looked at her. "You loved him." She blinked rapidly. "What? No, Ron, I love you." I scoffed. "Right. That's why you were kissing him in a restaurant." Bonnie flinched. "I was stupid," she said, her voice cracking. "It was never love. It was excitement, okay? He made me feel. I don't know. Young. Wanted. I don't know, Ron, I wasn't thinking." I shook my head, laughing bitterly. "Oh, you were thinking, Bonnie. You were thinking plenty." She reached for me again, but I stepped back. "Ron, please," she whispered. "I love you. I love our family." "No, you don't." She froze. I met her eyes, and for the first time in 20 years, I felt nothing when I looked at her. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I made a mistake." I nodded. "Yeah. A 6-month-long mistake." She let out a sob, but I was already walking away. "Where are you going?" she cried. I paused at the stairs. "To talk to Emily." And then I left Bonnie alone with the mess she created. I walked up the stairs, my hands clenched into fists. My chest felt tight, like I was holding in a scream that would tear through the whole house if I let it out. But I wasn't the one I cared about right now. I knocked on Emily's door. "Sweetheart, it's me." Silence. I sighed and leaned against the doorframe. "I know you're mad. I know you're hurt. But I need to talk to you, okay?" A few seconds passed. Then, finally, I heard the lock click. Emily opened the door just a crack, her eyes red and puffy. "Is she gone?" I exhaled slowly. "Not yet." Her jaw tightened. "Then I don't want to talk." "Emily, please." She stared at me for a second before stepping aside, letting me in. Her room was dark except for the soft glow of her laptop screen. I saw her schoolbooks on the desk, untouched. She sat down on the bed, pulling her knees to her chest. "I hate her," she muttered. I sat beside her. "I know. She ruined everything," she said, her voice shaking. "She lied to you. To me. And now what? We're just supposed to act like this didn't happen." I shook my head. "No. We're not." Emily wiped at her face angrily. I don't even want to look at her. I put an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. You don't have to. She sniffled, resting her head against me. What are you gonna do? I swallowed hard. I don't know yet. But I promise you this, you and me? We're gonna be okay. She squeezed her eyes shut. Just don't forgive her, Dad. Please. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I kissed the top of her head. Because she didn't need words. She needed to know that no matter what, I wasn't going to let Bonnie's betrayal destroy us. After making sure Emily was okay, well, as okay as she could be, I went back downstairs. Bonnie was still sitting on the couch, her hands shaking, her eyes red and swollen. She looked up at me the second I stepped into the room, desperate. Is she okay? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I ignored the question. I was past caring about how Bonnie felt. We need to talk. She nodded quickly, straightening up like a kid waiting for a punishment. Okay. Okay, Ron, please just tell me what you need. I stared at her. What I need. I needed my wife back. I needed my family whole. I needed the last 6 months to be a bad dream. But none of that was possible. So instead I gave her the only thing I could. You have 1 hour to pack a bag and leave. Her mouth fell open. What? You heard me. My voice was steady. Cold. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Bonnie shot up from the couch, shaking her head frantically. Ron, please. Please, we can fix this. I love you, I love Emily, I just messed up, but we can work through it. I laughed. Actually laughed. You messed up. I echoed. Bonnie, a messed up text? That's a mistake. Leaving the stove on? That's a mistake. Cheating on your husband for 6 months? That's a damn choice. Tears poured down her face. I'll end it with him. I swear. I'll block his number, I'll never talk to him again, just, please don't do this. I clenched my jaw. You already did this. She rushed toward me, reaching for my hands. I'll go to counseling. I'll do anything. Just let me stay. I don't want to lose you, Ron. I yanked my hands away. Well, you should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with Nick. Bonnie gasped like the words physically hurt her. I didn't care. I stepped back, nodding toward the stairs. 1 hour, Bonnie. Then you're gone. Her breath hitched. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Maybe Nick has a spare room. She flinched. Ron, please don't do this to me. I met her eyes, my voice like ice. You did this to yourself. And then I turned and walked away, leaving her to figure out where to go now that her best of both worlds had come crashing down. I went back upstairs after dropping that bomb on Bonnie. I wasn't about to sit there and listen to more begging, more fake apologies. She had an hour, and I wasn't wasting another second of my time on her. But of course she didn't leave quietly. 15 minutes later I heard her on the phone. At first it was muffled, just panicked whispers. Then, Nick, please, you have to pick up. Oh, hell no. I stormed downstairs, catching her hunched over her phone, pacing near the kitchen. The second she saw me, she flinched and tried to end the call. Too late. Oh, please, Bonnie, I said, crossing my arms. Don't let me interrupt your emergency boyfriend meeting. She wiped at her face quickly. Ron, I wasn't. I cut her off. What were you gonna say? Nick, my husband caught us, now I need a place to stay? She shook her head violently. No. I was just... Don't lie to me again, I snapped. You weren't calling a hotel. You weren't calling your parents. You were calling him. She clutched her phone like it was a lifeline. I just wanted to see if he could help. I let out a bitter laugh. Wow. Just wow. You destroy our family, break our daughter's heart, and the first thing you do is run to Nick. Bonnie shook her head. It's not like that. I don't even want to be with him. I love you. I scoffed. Oh yeah. Then why are you calling him instead of figuring out how to fix what you broke? Her bottom lip trembled. I don't know what to do, Ron. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. That's not my problem anymore. And for the first time I saw it click. She knew. This wasn't going to be a fight she could win. She wasn't getting another chance. She wasn't coming back from this. Bonnie let out a shuddering breath and dropped onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I ruined everything, she whispered. I didn't disagree. I just stood there, watching the woman I once loved fall apart under the weight of her own choices. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt nothing for her. Bonnie sat there, crumpled on the couch, rocking slightly like if she sat still for too long she'd shatter completely. She kept mumbling the same thing over and over. I ruined everything. I ruined everything. I didn't argue. Didn't try to comfort her. That wasn't my job anymore. Instead, I checked my watch. 40 minutes left. She looked up, blinking through her tears. Ron, please. I shook my head. No more begging. No more excuses. Pack your stuff and leave. Her eyes darted toward the stairs. Can I at least talk to Emily first? I stiffened. My daughter, the only person who mattered in this mess, was upstairs, trying to process the fact that her mother had just blown up our family. And Bonnie thought she could fix that with some half-baked apology? Not happening. No, I said firmly. She doesn't want to see you. Bonnie let out a small broken noise. But she's my daughter. And you're the one who hurt her, I cut in. She saw what you did, Bonnie. She saw everything. You don't get to waltz in here and pretend you can just talk your way out of this. Her face twisted in pain and for a second I thought she'd fight me on it. But then she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She stood slowly, wobbling like she was about to pass out, then trudged up the stairs. I didn't follow. I just listened. I heard the bedroom door creak open, drawers opening and closing, the sound of a suitcase zipper. Then, after about 20 minutes, the slow, hesitant steps of a woman who never thought she'd have to walk out of her own home like this. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she looked at me, her face pale. Where do I go? She asked. I shrugged. Not my problem. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but she must have realized there was nothing left to say. So she just nodded, eyes full of regret, and stepped toward the door. She hesitated with her hand on the knob. Do you think? She swallowed hard. Do you think Emily will ever forgive me? I stared at her. I don't know. Bonnie sucked in a shaky breath, nodded again and walked out. I didn't watch her go. I just locked the door behind her. The second the door shut behind Bonnie, the house fell into an eerie silence. No more fake laughter. No more excuses. No more lies. Just silence. For the first time in 20 years, Bonnie Lipton wasn't my problem anymore. I stood there for a long time just staring at the door. I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Satisfaction. But instead all I felt was empty. Like someone had ripped the floor out from under me, and I was just free-falling with nothing to hold on to. Then, from upstairs, "Is she gone?" Emily's voice. Quiet, cautious. I turned to see her peeking down from the hallway, her eyes still swollen from crying. She's gone, I confirmed. Emily nodded slowly, stepping forward. For good. I swallowed hard. Yeah. She didn't say anything right away. Just stood there, processing. Then, finally, good. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. You okay? Emily hesitated. I don't know, she admitted. But I feel better now that she's gone. I nodded, completely understanding what she meant. Yeah. Me too. She looked at me for a long moment, then without warning walked over and hugged me, tightly. I held onto her just as tight. It was just us now. And somehow that was enough. The first night without Bonnie felt strange. Not in the way I expected. I thought I'd feel free, like some weight had finally been lifted off my chest. But instead the house just felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Emily stayed in her room most of the night. I didn't push her. She needed space, and honestly, so did I. I sat on the couch, staring at the spot where Bonnie had been crying just hours ago. The image of her, completely broken, should have made me feel something. Guilt. Pity. But all I felt was nothing. At some point my phone buzzed. I already knew who it was before I even looked. Bonnie, I'm so sorry, Ron. For everything. I know I don't deserve it, but please, one day can we talk? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I blocked her number. No more talking. No more explanations. No more Bonnie. I wasn't going to let her crawl back into my life just because she was feeling guilty. She made her bed. Now she could lie in it, alone. The next few days were weird. Bonnie's absence was noticeable, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't some gaping hole in our lives, it was more like a dark cloud had finally lifted. Emily barely mentioned her. She stayed quiet, kept to herself, but I could tell she was processing things in her own way. She didn't cry, didn't mope. She just adjusted. I did too. At work I went through the motions, but my mind was somewhere else. People asked if I was okay, and I just gave the usual "I'm fine" response. What else could I say? I had a wife. Then I didn't. I had a marriage. Then I didn't. It was as simple as that. But apparently, Bonnie wasn't handling it as well. One evening I got a call from her mother. I hesitated before answering, but eventually I did. "Ron," she sighed, her voice heavy. "I just wanted to check in on you and Emily." "We're fine," I said flatly. She paused. "And Bonnie?" I clenched my jaw. "What about her?" "She's a mess," her mom admitted. "She's been crying for days. She keeps saying she ruined everything, that she doesn't know how to fix it." I let out a bitter laugh. "There is no fixing this." "I know," her mother said quickly. I just wanted you to know she regrets it." I rubbed my temples. "She regrets getting caught." Her mom didn't argue. Because deep down she probably knew I was right. "Just please," she said softly. "If she ever reaches out, don't be cruel." I sighed, shaking my head. "I don't need to be cruel. She already did this to herself." We ended the call and I sat there for a long time, staring at the floor. For the first time in 20 years, Bonnie Lipton wasn't my wife anymore. And honestly, that was fine by me. A week passed. Then 2. Bonnie never came back. She didn't try to see me. Didn't try to see Emily. Maybe she finally understood that there was nothing left to salvage. Emily and I settled into a new routine, just the two of us. It wasn't easy at first. The quiet moments still felt a little too empty. The house still had traces of Bonnie everywhere. Her perfume on an old scarf, her handwriting on a sticky note stuck to the fridge. But day by day the weight of it all got lighter. One night, Emily and I were sitting in the living room, watching some random movie neither of us cared about. Halfway through she turned to me and said, "Dad." "Yeah." She hesitated. Then, "I don't think I want to talk to Mom again." I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. "That's your choice, sweetheart. I'll never force you." She looked down at her hands. "It's just, if she could lie to you like that, then what else has she lied about? What else has she been hiding?" I didn't have an answer for that. All I could do was reach over, squeeze her hand and say, "You and me, kid. We'll be okay." And for the first time since this whole mess started, I actually believed it. Bonnie was my past. Emily was my future. And I was finally ready to move forward.
Bye.